Welcome to the Whole Athlete Podcast, where we focus on discussing topics to help you become a fat burner, optimize health, and improve performance in life and sports. Transform the whole you from the inside out with the holistic method. Let's dive in. Here's your host, Debbie Potts.
Hey everybody, it's Debbie Potts, and I'm doing a new episode of the Whole Athlete Podcast to talk about new ways you can improve your performance in your sport, triathlons, endurance events, but also just daily life. And there's a person I really wanted to share with you and her product, Vibrant Blue Oils founder, Jodi. Thanks for coming on the show today.
Oh my God, thank you for having me. I love what you do, and we have a million friends in common.
I know, we're just talking just that Kevin Bacon.
Yeah, exactly.
Separation is like all these different people. We're both in Seattle, Bellevue area, and you've been doing nutritional therapy work as a practitioner for how many years?
I started in 2012.
So some time now. That's great. And you've kind of talk about what I always like to ask people beginning the show now, what is your passion? What is your purpose, and how you're creating impact in our society? So why don't you kind of goes what we're talking about today, Vibrant Blue Oils. What got you to where you are? What's your passion and purpose?
I guess my passion is I went through hell and back, and on the journey learned a lot of things that I wish I had known that kind of made it easier and helped me. And so my passion is giving people tools to help them heal, so they really don't have to, everyone, I think sometimes you do need to hit rock bottom to actually come back and heal, but things that help you get out of rock bottom faster. And my passion is really women and families, and kind of helping. I feel like so many of us are juggling far too much and just need help. And so women, moms, I fight for the underdog.
Let me just close this out. Hold on. So one moment, I'm trying to get space here. So what I want to talk about today is what you've created, this Vibrant Blue Oils, with it being a nutritional therapy practitioner. How do you come up with Vibrant Blue Oils, and talk about what that is?
Absolutely. So my rock bottom, my husband, who is bipolar, attempted suicide, and I found him and got him into a residential treatment facility, a word that I actually learned from our friend Karen Andonian. Didn't even know that vocabulary word. And what that means is that trained professionals actually support him and keep him alive. And once that was not my job, because there are no facilities in Seattle, we moved him to an amazing place in Houston called Menninger. I fell apart because I had been for the last 10 years, the cheerleader and keeping him alive. And anyone that's living with someone who's bipolar or depressed, it's exhausting, not just for the person facing it, but for those of us that are trying to support them. And, in the past, it's kind of like as you age, things stop working. Like when you're younger, you can just take out gluten and suddenly you drop 10 pounds, and then you get older, you need to add more. So the things that had helped me in the past just weren't cutting it. And the kids were really little. They were in kindergarten and second grade. And I was the single mom. And basically it took every ounce of energy to get out of bed and make them breakfast, pack their lunches, get them to school. And then I would come home and collapse, and I couldn't answer the phone. Laundry felt overwhelming. I mean, it's so silly, but things that you need to do.
Simple things seem difficult.
Really difficult. And I had been given postpartum depression drugs after my son was born, and it made me crazy. I didn't know at the time I am a slow methylator, so things don't go through my liver very quickly. So it was almost like I was constantly overdosing, and I recognized very quickly that I was feeling psychotic, and so I got off those those drugs. But, in the face of this, it's kind of like, what do I do? The food isn't enough, supplements aren't enough, and drugs aren't an option. And fortunately, I had been, I had done a couple favors for friends of mine that owned a local supplement company, and so they showed up one day with a big box of essential oils and said, "These are going to help you." And I said, great, what do I do? And they said, no, you're really smart and you're really intuitive. You will figure it out. And I was kind of hanging on the couch, and they left on the couch, and then they left. And I thought, well, I know how to test supplements. I know it's my adrenals that are collapsed, and I know how to test supplements, just box and see if, anything pops out. And I got a very strong yes. And I got 5 oils that kind of presented as an option. I thought, well, that's weird. Normally I get like one supplement. So then I had this idea, oh, I can combine them. So I actually got really excited, got off the couch, went into the kitchen, grabbed a shot glass, and tested each oil and kind of figured out my first blend. And I, combined them in the shot glass and put them over my adrenals, which for those of you that don't know, are on your low back. Your kidneys are about the size of your fist, and your kidneys start at your very bottom rib. So if you put your fist on your very bottom rib, right above that is the adrenals. And that's where I applied the oil. And I'm a lifelong runner. That always makes me happy. But for whatever reason, when I had no energy, I couldn't even do that. And my first thought was, I can go running. And it was like, oh my God, it's me, I'm back. So I went on a run, and it was a beautiful day. And I came back and I put more on. I thought, I could shower, I can go to the supermarket, I could do laundry. Like I got more done in that day than I had in the past month.
So it was right away you felt this energy shift.
Well, that's what's really great about oils, especially, we're so used to ingesting remedies. And if our digestion is compromised, sometimes it takes a while to get to the right area. And it's really hard to take supplements and have them go to the brain just because of the blood-brain barrier and how it's organized and how it likes super small fat-soluble remedies. So oils, when they're applied, we know that the skin transdermal remedies like nicotine patches or hormonal creams get into our system really quickly. Anything you apply on your skin gets in really quickly. And so that's what happened with the adrenal blend. And then that night I was, my kids at that point we were all sleeping in the same bed, which means I wasn't really sleeping, but they're asleep and I'm sitting there thinking about that was so weird. I wonder how that worked. Then it kind of occurred to me, I wonder if I could make something for sleep. And so that was my next remedy. And I kept having those moments of like, my son, we had mold in the house at the time, which I didn't realize. He was coughing and I thought, I can make something for that. So it's kind of like every day was a new invention of a blend. And
so
then
you would just get the oils, therapeutic, pure oils, and then blend them into your own little bottle and then apply them, or would you do them separately?
I was just kind of making it up as I went, and I ordered, there's actually a great bottle company in Seattle, it's called Specialty Bottles. So I ordered a bunch of them and just started making my remedies. And then when I felt better, returning phone calls was one of the things that felt overwhelming. And so actually Karen Andonian and a group of women said, why don't we just have a big lunch? Instead of you having to catch up with all these people individually, we'll just organize a lunch and anyone who wants to can come. And I thought, that's easy, I can do that. So at the lunch, they were asking me, well, what are you doing? How are you getting better? And I was telling them about, at the time it seemed so wacky, like, oh God, someone gave me oils, but they actually work and it's so strange. And they were like, we want to try it. So, I just was giving it to my friends and it was working for them and working on their clients. And then the 2013 Nutritional Therapy Conference, to be a vendor at that time, it was like $250. And my background was marketing. And I thought, well, you know what? I wonder if this would work for other people. So I just threw my hat in the bucket and kind of, created the blends that I had and showed up. And everyone, it was incredibly well received because one thing I didn't realize, once I had my brain function back and I started looking online at what other people were doing, I was surprised by two things. I was really surprised that no one was kind of looking at it through this lens of balancing the organs and regions of the brain. And I was surprised at how complicated they had made it. If I had my wits about me and went online first, I never would have dove in because I would have felt completely unqualified. So armed with kind of that knowledge that there's this huge potential that oils can help balance our health, and no one's really doing it this way, and they probably won't because they'll feel unqualified. Why not put this out there? And it was incredibly well received. We sold out, and that's kind of how the company started.
So you started Vibrant Blue Oils is your name of the company. And what is the name? Because it creates vibrant energy. What kind of...
It's really funny. So my mom loves antique stores, and her strategy for getting us to not complain and stay longer was to encourage my sister and I to collect things. And my sister picked thimbles, and I picked those antique blue bottles. I love the color cobalt. I love the blue bottles. So bizarrely, like my whole, like I brought my bottle collection. They came to college with me. They came to my first apartment in DC, New York. Like I have carried these blue bottles with me through life just because I think they're pretty and I like the energy of them. So when these oils presented in my life and they came in a blue bottle, I was like, oh, of course, it just made sense to me. And so also the idea of the blue bottle kind of holds a different energy. It really helps to shield out frequencies that are not healthy and kind of contain in and harmonize other frequencies. So I kind of made up the name because I liked the blue and I liked the idea of the vibrant energy.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
Yeah.
So let's talk about to improve performance in sports. We want to repair and recover.
Yeah.
We want to use that time when we're sleeping to detoxify, repair, and recovery. But what we keep talking about over the episodes the last few years is a little more nutritional therapy in the nervous system. So the parasympathetic nervous system versus the sympathetic. And talk about that a little bit, the nervous system, and how, let's kind of go to the direction of how those oils can help us recover, repair, rebuild, as well as digest and everything else.
Yeah. So the autonomic nervous system has two states. The sympathetic fight or flight state, which is, historically you see the lion and you switch into the sympathetic state and all the blood is routed away from your digestive organs towards your muscles so you can flee really fast. And the idea is you run from the tiger, then you collapse and you drop back into that parasympathetic recovery state. Mm-hmm. Sadly, what happens is that we get stuck in this sympathetic state, be it from, stressful thoughts. We're thinking about the news, we're thinking about our job, our relationship, and thoughts, anticipatory stress, like thoughts can trigger a response just as much as a tiger chasing us, which was a survival mechanism. If your village burned down from fire and you smell fire, that's going to protect you, right? Sadly, worrying about what Trump is tweeting is not going to protect you. It's just going to keep you stuck in overdrive. The other thing that's going on is that toxins in our mouth, either from gum infections, cavitations, root canals, amalgams, the trigeminal nerve drains right here and kind of dumps toxins right here. This on-off switch between our sympathetic and our parasympathetic state is controlled by this very important nerve in our body. It's called the vagus nerve. It's cranial nerve number 10. It starts at the base of the skull and winds around both sides of the body. It's most accessible here, right behind the earlobe. If you feel behind your earlobe on that bone, that's where it's most accessible. And then it winds through every organ of digestion along with the heart, the lungs, the spleen, and it's a really important communicator between the brain and the body. It's a bilateral communication, which means that the brain sends signals down to the body and the body also sends signals back up to the brain. If you think about that game telephone, and you're passing the message around and somehow at the end of the message, it winds up totally different. If there are toxins that have drained and kind of dumped right here, that impedes the signal. So it's a little bit like you're driving down a highway and it's supposed to have 4 lanes, but 3 of them are under construction or there's an accident. It just messes up the signal and backs it up. So if there are toxins lingering here, that can impede the signal. So couple things are happening. The signal that you're dropping into the parasympathetic state, which allows you to detoxify, digest your food, because the parasympathetic state brings the blood flow back to the digestive organs. It also turns the immune system on when you're in that emergency survival mode. Anything that's not critical to surviving shuts down. So your immune function, your ability to be anti-inflamed, to detoxify, even to have a rational conversation. One of the signs that you're in that sympathetic state is that your pupils, the black part of your eyes, are really dilated, so they're really big. So if you're trying to have a conversation with somebody in your life and you notice that their pupils are really big, it's not going to work. When the kids were babies, they used to say connect before you correct, meaning calm them down, get them in that parasympathetic receptive state, and then talk to them, because if they just got in trouble, they're going to be pretty sympathetic. So one way you can do that with oils is to stimulate this vagus nerve. And we have this blend of clove and lime, and you would just take a small drop. I'll actually show you so people can see.
So you guys have to go to the YouTube channel, The Whole Athlete, or see thewholeathletepodcast.com if you're listening to the audio, because you want to watch Jodi apply the oils, because it'll really help.
The fabulous oil application. So anyway, I just put one finger on the top and the thumb on the bottom and do a quick flip of the bottle so that I don't get too much oil. And then I apply it just right behind the earlobe on the mastoid bone. And it does 2 things. it stimulates the vagus nerve so that it's like, if you think of a train switching tracks, it puts you into that parasympathetic state. But the other thing that it does, that vagus nerve toxicity, which we find in like 90% of our chronically ill clients, clove has been used throughout centuries to help clean up toxicity in the mouth. So it helps to clean up that toxicity. So it's not only signaling the downstream digestive cascade and turning on detoxification and the immune system. It's kind of cleaning up the, like the traffic accident that's blocking the signal.
I love your analogies because it makes it easier for people to understand, because people aren't nutritional therapists or functional med people that, to relate it. It's like the car, I always keep talking about the liver and the filter in your car and auto parts is so related to the body. But I think it helps to understand what gets congested and what we need to open and create that flow and have the energy flowing so we can optimize our health and operate as we're meant to be each day. And I think so many people, if they're, I wrote a whole book on Life is Not a Race about my story. And I see so many people, it's becoming epidemic that we're all running from a line every day, all day. And we don't have, like you said, run from that line and then collapse and rest. We're just going nonstop until we go to bed at night and then even having trouble sleeping. So I think athletes, especially, they're adding on another part-time job on top of working full-time, being a family member, parent. And then they're adding in 15, 20 hours of training for a triathlon that really overloads your system. So I'm trying to help spread the word and educate people really to take, if you want to do the sports you love to do and not have, like, I've taken 5 years to get myself better. And it's not, I haven't felt good until the last couple of years learning nutritional therapy. And I think the essential oils, instead of having to take all these different pills that you don't even do that much for you, I think
course correcting
the oil.
We think about, we course correct all day long. Like, we're driving, we veer a little too far to the left, we get back in our lane. They say that planes, like if you fly from Seattle to New York, it's not a straight line. It's a constant series of course corrections. Okay. Every day when we brush our teeth, we're preventing gum disease. It's just those little habits that you can implement throughout the day that kind of help you recover as you go. Like drinking water.
Yeah. So doing that, but talking about the vagal nerve, what are some other things that we need to improve on to help our recovery, which in the end result is improving, if you want to get faster and stronger and winning in your age group, how do I get to that point? What are some things I can do?
Yeah, the other two oils that I use on a daily basis are the adrenal oil. So one thing, when we're exercising, the adrenals are what kind of release that hormone cortisol, which is our energy hormone. And we really need to draw on that, especially if we're sprinting or doing hills or doing something that really requires us to kind of up our game and our energy. And so the adrenals either need to kind of be sedated, like they're releasing too much cortisol and it's like we're jittery and caffeinated, and that's what happens when we're trying to go to bed tonight. We're so wired that we can't actually relax and fall asleep, or they're exhausted and we wake up and we have to hit the snooze button and we can barely get out of bed and we can't wait to get our first cup of coffee because caffeine and cortisol are similar hormones. So, it's a little bit like throughout the day, they vary. Like in the morning, they might be exhausted, and then maybe after your run or your workout, you're wired up and you need to calm down. And a lot of the nutritional supplements are designed to either stimulate or sedate. But there are these adaptogenic herbs. Adaptogenic herbs grow in really rough climates where they really have to adapt and kind of find balance constantly. And that's kind of what this essential oil blend of adrenal does, is it just helps you adapt. So if, you're pumping out too much cortisol, it takes the edge off and kind of brings you back to normal. If you're exhausted and depleted, it brings you up to baseline. So it's just constantly putting you in balance. And that's one thing I want to say, like for anything, and even healing athletics, it's not that these remedies fix you. It's that they put your body back in balance so your body can fix itself. I equate it to like a marble ramp. If a little bit is not lined up, then the marble won't roll down the ramp. The minute it's in alignment, everything flows. So the oils that I use are the parasympathetic to help balance the vagus nerve in that parasympathetic state. The adrenals to put your adrenals in balance. And when they're not in balance, what happens, the adrenals, there are two of them. and they sit on both sides of the low back, kind of on the hips. And if one's working too hard, it can kind of twerk your pelvis. So your experience is that one leg is longer than the other. Like I thought that was happening to me. So I had an insert in my shoes for years, and it turned out it was just my adrenals that were off. So one thing that's really great for athletes every day, like especially before you exercise and after, if you can apply the adrenal remedy to your low back, or if you prefer take some kind of adrenal supplement or adaptogenic herb, just proactively balancing your adrenals will balance your pelvis and your low back so that you're never putting strain on one side over the other. And that will definitely help your performance. The other thing that I love, our lymphatic system, it kind of carries healing nutrients into the cells and then waste out of the cells. It doesn't have a pump like the heart. So anytime you're moving your body, you're actually moving your lymph, which is great. The fact that athletes are actively moving the lymph, they've got a huge benefit over the rest of society. Things that can help to move the lymph are definitely the infrared saunas. Like the infrared light is working with the intracellular water to kind of help move lymph flow. We have an oil that also moves lymph flow. And one thing that we have to think about, like all of these brain issues, what's really happening is that the toxins aren't draining out of the head. You know, the neck is the highway in and out of the brain. So it's what's carrying nutrients into the brain and also what's carrying debris out. And so often with these juice cleanses or other things that kind of mobilize toxins, it's like, let's Christmas morning, you're opening all these presents. Yay, you have presents. But then you also have all the garbage. Like if you don't have garbage bags or something to get rid of all the wrapping, it's a bit of a hot mess. So one of the things when you're really healthy and eating really healthy, you really want to make sure that your drainage pathways are open to remove toxins from the body. And that is a big job for the lymphatic system. So we have an oil that you can apply on the sides of the neck, under the arms, under the left clavicle, which is kind of a key drainage channel, and then kind of along your bikini line. But what I want to say about the lymph system and the drainage system is it's a bit like a hydraulic system. Like imagine again a freeway where 3 of the 4 lanes are closed. It's not just there's congestion at that point of the traffic jam. There's a backup, sometimes miles back, because of that one bottleneck. So if the lymph isn't flowing down your neck, through the left clavicle, all these things, there's going to be a backup of toxins in your brain, and you're going to feel tired. Maybe you'll have a headache. Maybe it presents as brain fog, all of these things. So as you're kind of moving your body and requiring, more from your body than a non-athlete would, being able to really drain that lymphatic system is going to really help you. So I apply our lymph oil always sides of the neck, under the left clavicle, under the armpits, and along the inguinal area, which is the bikini line, every time before I exercise. And it's interesting. I feel it more in yoga, because running is a pretty straightforward activity, but in yoga, you're doing warrior poses, and you can go deeper and stronger. So whenever I'm challenging myself, if I use the lymph oil, I notice that it kind of allows me to push myself a bit farther.
Mm-hmm. So are you doing these every day, or just you're doing the lymphatic one before you exercise?
I do the adrenal, the parasympathetic, and the lymph. I go to yoga at 6 a.m. every day before yoga. I put those on, or I go running if it's sunny out. I'm a fair weather jogger now.
Yeah.
Which in Seattle doesn't mean every day.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do those first thing in the morning. And then I find that there's this amazing thought leader named BJ Fogg out of Stanford University. He has this idea of tiny habits. And what he says is that if you can link like a new habit to something you're already doing, it always makes it easier to implement. So I already do yoga every day. So I just put these 3 oils in my jacket pocket and I apply them before yoga. And it just makes it easier to kind of tether them together. And then I also usually do it kind of after lunch, and that 3 o'clock, like my energy is dip. So that's kind of when I set myself up. But I think the more you can organize your habits to set yourself up for success, the more successful you'll be.
I think that's great. And it's easy. They're small bottles, and I've just been able to put them in my purse before. It's just creating that routine. Like you're already going to work out. I put my heart rate monitor on. I put my Garmin.
Yes.
The oils right there too, to get into that new habit. But I appreciate you talking about the lymphatic system, because I don't think anyone really knows until I did nutritional therapy. You hear about lymph nodes, people have breast cancer and whatnot, but no one talks about the lymphatic system and how important it is to our health.
So important.
I don't know why no one talks about it.
There are a couple, the lymphatic system and the spleen, I'm finding, are like two really important issues, and binders. Like that's another thing I do want to mention.
Yes.
So toxins are also, the liver produces bile. It's then stored in the gallbladder and released not only to emulsify and break down fat, but to carry toxins out of the body. So the bile is then transported to the small intestine, where it's designed to leave the body with your feces, but it sometimes gets re-assimilated. So binders, things like chlorella, as long as you don't have amalgams in your mouth. There's a great product called GI Detox that you can put in the show notes. You can get it on Amazon. But taking binders every day, especially before you go to bed, especially if you're really active and you're churning and burning and creating more waste, you really want to make sure that waste leaves your body.
Well, I think if you're exercising, people that are running, if they're doing running just for workouts, or they're training for a race or triathlon, that you have that, like we have a rebounder now at my studio and have people bounce, and that's a good way to do it. But then once you go into, say you're doing an infrared therapy session, as we do at the studio now, that you're getting the toxins pulled out. But you said the important thing of having that binder, because I was just talking to people about how afterwards give them some type of binder as bentonite clay or something that, now you got all these toxins moved around. How are you going to get them stick together and move out through your lymphatic system? And
and even emotional release, releasing emotions. And I don't know about your listeners, but my favorite thing about running or long runs is that I really can process through things. It's
therapy.
Like having my own therapy session in my head as I'm exercising.
Yes. And that's funny, because did you go NTA conference this year?
Mm-hmm.
I've been talking a lot the last few months since our nutritional therapy conference, how many people are bringing up, the toxic thoughts, as you're talking earlier about, and saying those emotions, how you store them inside, how those are related to show up as health issues later on in life. Because if you store those in, those are another source of toxins in a way, or stressors for
stagnant energy, and stagnation leads to disease.
Yes.
Dietrich Klinghardt, who carries my oils, and I work very closely with him, he's developed this Klinghardt axiom. It's kind of like when you hit the ceiling, the bottleneck of healing and detoxification, you need to work on emotions, because, it's a little bit like a three-legged race, right? One person can only do so much on their own. The other person has to show up. So it's not just the physical body. It's also the emotional blockages that hold on to toxins. And that's why, when people have divorces, for example, they lose all this weight, because they're kind of suddenly processing all these things and getting rid of the toxins that are holding on to the weight.
Interesting. Yeah, I love this stuff. So to recovery, the other important part, as we mentioned a little bit, is sleep.
Yes.
And nutrition. Let's get after that. I wrote down to remember digestion, because so many people try to eat healthy, but they're not digesting their foods, and how the oils can help. So let's start with sleep, and repair is in there, and inflammation and digestion after that.
Yes, absolutely. So sleep is honestly, I think, the most important thing, because it's actually during sleep that the brain detoxifies. The brain, they didn't know this until 2012, because they were only looking at dead brains, and you can only discover this if you're looking at a live brain. It shrinks by 60%. And the lymphatic system in the brain, along with these brain cells called the glial cells, it's almost like a car wash. They just wash the fluid through the brain, and then it drains down the side of the neck. So you really need to be in the sleep state for this to happen, because when you're awake, there are too many things that your brain is required to do. It's a little bit like fight or flight. You can't shut down. So one of the challenges with sleep is that we're so amped up. We've got cortisol running through our system, and cortisol is the stress hormone. The sleep hormone is melatonin, and they work in tandem. It makes sense that if a lion is chasing you, for example, you're not going to fall asleep because you'll die. So if you think of it like a teeter-totter, when cortisol and stress is high, that forces melatonin low. So in order to bring up the melatonin, the sleep hormone, you have to kind of reduce the stress. And we have an oil that triggers the natural release of the sleep hormone melatonin. It's released by the pineal gland in response to dark. And, a lot of these artificial lights or devices throw that off, because even though it's dark outside, it's bright to us. So sleep hygiene, the more you can kind of wean yourself off of devices before bed, and then also triggering the natural release of melatonin. Interestingly, melatonin supplements don't work very well because they can't necessarily get through to the blood-brain barrier. So our circadian rhythm oil or then a liposomal melatonin are far more effective. And melatonin is also a detoxifying agent. It helps to relieve just heavy metals in the brain. It's really important. I know there's a lot of controversy over how much is too much. I kind of don't think there's too much melatonin. I think it's a really great tool for everyone all the time, like glutathione.
So using the oil for your pineal gland, where do you apply that, and how do you do that?
Put it right on the top of the head, so just a little bit of drop, and then right above the earlobes, like kind of on the skin of the brain, and then the very back of the head. And that helps to release melatonin and then also to naturally bring down cortisol. So for anyone who has, like my daughter used to have anxiety at night, and she, like monkey mind, wouldn't stop thinking. So this really helps to get her to naturally fall asleep and reduce the monkey mind at night. In addition to falling asleep, there are challenges with staying asleep, and that can be related to either blood sugar issues. If your blood sugar dips too low, the adrenals kind of release cortisol as an emergency hormone, and then it's the pancreas that transports the blood sugar into the cells. So we have an oil for the pancreas that allows you to naturally fall back asleep. And a nighttime wake up like that might be between 1 and 2 in the morning, and you might just be super wide awake, like you could go work on a project. The other kind of night waking is liver night waking. That's usually around 3 a.m. and you're a little bit more groggy. That might be if you wake up at 3 a.m. and you need to go to the bathroom because you're relieving toxins. So we have a liver oil for that one. The other things that you can do, castor oil is great for the liver and also for the lymphatic. They talk about castor oil packs that are a bit complicated and messy. You can just wear a ratty t-shirt and put the castor oil over your liver, which is right under your right rib, and just let your body heat warm it up, and you can combine the liver oil with that. Another good kind of efficiency hack, if you ever take an Epsom salt bath, which is great because it combines heat and magnesium and baking soda, which is alkalizing. You can also put castor oil over your liver and get in the hot water, and that heats it up. And castor oil is really kind of thick and messy, so I wouldn't recommend, if you have something that you love, like a nice shirt, don't put that on afterwards. Just know that it's going to be a little bit messy.
So those are great. So biohacks, in a way, for athletes that improve performance is doing a simple essential oil. For sleeping, I think is huge because a lot of people can't sleep because of various reasons, blood sugar, as you talk about, and adrenals, and getting that cortisol, melatonin whacked out. But also when we sleep, our body's supposed to be detoxifying and repairing. So I think a lot of times if people have inflammation in their body, they're waking up and they're tired, they're just having trouble sleeping, I think they forget that sleep, like to me, sleep is so important. After my adrenal stuff and, not sleeping middle of the night, waking up at 2 a.m. for like a whole year. And now it's like, I have to get my sleep and really take it seriously, because if you want to improve your performance, that's like, are you sleeping should be really up there in your priorities, not your training program.
I think it's the number one priority. I mean, I think food is foundational, but it's not enough. If you're not sleeping, then it's really hard to recover and heal and be your best.
Yeah, for sure.
And also, it's not just what we eat, it's how we eat. Eating in that parasympathetic state is really critical. So even if I wouldn't use it on children under 18 months, but I always apply the parasympathetic behind the ears of my children before meals, because what that does, it allows us to drop into that optimal rest digest state, so that you might be spending a ton of time, money, and energy on a nutrient-dense whole food meal, but if you're not eating it in the parasympathetic state, you're not going to be able to assimilate the nutrients as well.
That's what I keep saying to people, and my clients I have at my studio that I'm coaching, is that, taking that time, deep breath in and exhale and just focus on eating. Because I think so many times, and I catch myself doing this too, that I'm eating, walking to something, and I'm not focused and staying, if you take a prayer or sit on the floor and just get that parasympathetic state. But the other thing is I have so many clients that eat so fast and they're just eating a lot really quickly. And I think that needs, trying to change that behavior is essential as well. So it's not just if you're eating healthy foods, but are you absorbing those nutrients? Because if your digestive system's turned off, because you're sympathetic, it's, you got to look at that as well. So doing the oils will help that.
Yeah, and it's back to those tiny habits. Like the more you can create little rituals, like I would encourage your listeners to even think about what they're already doing. Like I'd be willing to bet that they have a certain space that they put their keys so they can always find them. So they always know where they are, and they probably have a morning routine, of what time they wake up, how they wake up, what they do when they first wake up. All of these routine, the more you can make it kind of a ritual and routine, the easier it is to follow. And I loved your point, prayer. It doesn't even need to be religious. It can just being grateful for the food. Like, I'm grateful that I have this food. I'm grateful for, all the farmers that were involved in getting it to me, and the time that maybe I took or someone else took to prepare it for me. It's really valuable. It's these small little things, like as athletes, we have strategies, where we start in the beginning of the race, how fast we go at each point, when we get water. We're very methodical about how we think about our success. And this one little thing can make such a big difference in your success.
Perfect. So where can people find your oils, and how can they get started? What's the best way to start with all these different options?
They can find me at Vibrant Blue Oils, VIBRANT, blue like the color, oils.com. And if they have questions, they can email me at info@vibrantblueoils. And I can give them a coupon to get started with parasympathetic or adrenal and lymph, whatever they'd like.
Great. And I know there's kits and there's blogs and there's lots of educational seminars they can get too on your website, that once you get on your mailing list too, I love your blogs, because even the spleen one the other day, I was like, right on, because that's what my acupuncturist and my fascial stretch therapist, Melissa, always is. She's studying Chinese medicine at Bastyr. Like, it's a spleen, and I go see my acupuncturist. It's different philosophy, so it's important.
I met this amazing Chinese medicine doctor, and it's really interesting. So I kind of have 5 principles of what everyone needs, because everyone's bio-individual and they're different. And that was overwhelming to me for a while, because there's so many data points, but I've realized there are 5 things that everyone needs. Everyone needs sleep. Absolutely. Everyone needs energy to heal. And we think about the thyroid and the adrenals as supporting energy, but it's also the spleen. Spleen is really critical for energy, and if our spleen energy is off during the day, that makes it harder to sleep at night. We need to modulate our immune system, because if it overreacts, we're sick all the time. If it underreacts, we're never sick, and then suddenly we have something big like autoimmunity or cancer. We need to open the drainage pathways, which is what you're doing. That's so great with the infrared saunas and the lymph oil and moving our body. And then finally, the vagus nerve and vagus nerve toxicity. We really need to make sure that we're in the parasympathetic state. And those 5 things, for some people, that completely cures them. For people that are really complicated, it gets them like 80% of the way, and then you fine tune and tweak.
That's great. And then lastly, so if we have our sunlight and infrared therapy at my studio, when people, if they have their own infrared therapy, sunlight is totally different than saunas. So make sure this is different type, but if the full spectrum is a near, mid, and far infrared, what oils should they put on before they go in the infrared, or should they do that after? How should they do that?
I think parasympathetic is a great one. And then the lymph oil, and castor oil is amazing for moving lymph too. So I would even encourage maybe put it on the bottom of your feet, because that helps to kind of draw the toxins down.
Okay. So, and then like the different liver oils and adrenal oils, would you do that before? Or is that just something you should do in the morning or before your workouts?
The adrenal, I would do 2 or 3 times a day, definitely in the morning before a workout, and then sometime in the mid-afternoon. I don't know that I do think that the body can get overwhelmed. It's a little bit like, having my kids have their friends over all the time, and when 5 people are talking to me at once, I just can't. So I almost feel like, limit it to the parasympathetic and the lymph.
Less is more.
I do think that's true.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, that's why I just thought, just to figure out where to be, because I know people walk in, and just from my adrenal HP axis experience last 5 years, that I see everyone come in and they're like, everyone seems to be wired and anxious, even if they're not working full time. People are just busy parents, busy working, different jobs or volunteering, and they're just on the go all the time. And then you add on exercise, and maybe they're training for a big Ironman coming up, whatever it is, people are all just nonstop busy. So I think, just learning simple things, as you said, that they can add into their routine that they already got going on is a great way to start. Sign up on your website, get that blog you have is great information, and just start with the parasympathetic oil maybe and just get started.
Parasympathetic and adrenal for athletes. Yeah. Those are the two I would absolutely say, and possibly the lymph. Yeah, and I mean, that's the one thing. Like, people are so overwhelmed and they're fatigued, and if you can just help them have more energy, like that one small thing, they feel so much better.
Mm-hmm. And I noticed I feel good one day, and then it takes me a couple days. Like today, I'm kind of sleepy because the day is longer, and I'm not getting to sleep as early as I need to get up at 4:30. So sleeping and recovery is so huge. But maybe needing that adrenal oil so you can feel good for your next workout. I think it'd be good.
Well, also, I'm sure you talk about Epsom salt baths. I like Mark Hyman's. It's 2 cups of Epsom salt, 1 cup of baking soda, and then a couple drops of oil. You can use lavender because it's easy. But that is just a really great reset, because it kind of helps, especially if you're burning through your energy, you're kind of creating a lot of waste along the way, and it just helps to pull things out of your body. Your skin is your largest organ. That's why sometimes we have skin eruptions when we're overwhelmed. So just doing that even twice a week can really help reset your system.
Great tips. Well, thanks, Jodi, for coming on today. And we'll put everything in the show notes, and you go to our YouTube channel for the Whole Athlete podcast to see Jodi explain the oils visually, see how they go on, and you can find more on her website. She has lots of great videos on there too. So thank you so much for your time and your knowledge and your great analogies, so the mainstream listeners can figure out what you're talking about.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Whole Athlete Podcast. If you have any questions, feedback, or topic suggestions, let us know on Facebook or at wholeathletepodcast.com. You can help us continue and grow by leaving a review on iTunes. Thanks again, and see you next time.